to put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country a better
People on the
land.
left are going to watch this. They're going to say, wait a minute, Eric Prince is talking about being a colonialist again.
Absolutely. Yes. Then it's time for us to just put the imperial hat back on to say, we're going to govern those countries if you're incapable of governing yourselves, because enough is enough. We're done being invaded.
Because our own national security risk is at stake.
Exactly.
National security interests are at stake.
You can say that about pretty much all of Africa. They're incapable of governing themselves and benefiting their citizens because the governments there are all about looting and pillaging and lining their pockets and going shopping in Paris instead of actually making their country a better
People on the left are going to.
So how do you feel as an African or a leader of a leader in Africa when you hear somebody saying this about you, that you are incapable of governing yourself? All that you do is looting your resources and going to Paris and shopping. When you see this kind of videos, how do you feel as a leader of Africa? It is very pathetic. It is very, very unfortunate that we as children of Africa, we have allowed ourselves to be ridiculed like this. This guy is a war criminal. This guy is a criminal. This guy knows exactly what he's talking about, because this guy is one of the people who are sponsoring wars and coup d'etats in Africa. And yet, at the end of the day, he will go and sit down and say that they should come back to Africa and recolonize Africa. That is exactly what he's saying. Because we are not capable of governing ourselves. If our leaders, as I said, if you see this kind of videos, what do you think? But I don't blame him, because as I said, this guy will go to Congo, he will go to Ghana, he will go to Namibia, he will go to Malawi, he will go to Zimbabwe, and then instigate the opposition or the citizens against the government. And then we will listen to him, because that is the God mentality that the Europeans have put in us, our minds, that anything that the Europeans said, we should embrace it, because they are our gods, because our God is a white man. If not, can he say the same thing about China? This is the reason why we are calling for the unification of Africa. This is the reason why we are saying, yes, we might have differences, even though we don't believe that there is differences between us as African people. We are one people. But yes, okay, let us admit that we have differences. But let us put aside our differences and unite the continent of Africa, so that this nonsense that this guy is talking about will cease to exist. Because he couldn't say the same thing about China. He would be sanctioned. He cannot say the same thing about Russia. He cannot say the same thing even about Saudi Arabia. Why? Who give him the guts to say that about Africa? Because he know we are weak. His ancestors went to Berlin and divided Africa among themselves, so that their great-grandchildren, like this man, will be saying this nonsense about Africa, and then we got nothing to do, or we have no power to react or to say anything about what they would do to us. That is the reason why he's saying that about Africa. Because if not, how dare him say that we are children of Africa, the mothers and fathers of this universe, the original people of this universe. We are the cradle of mankind, but we have no brains to govern ourselves. So if we cannot govern ourselves, then they should put back their imperial heart and go back and colonize us. But as I said, I don't blame him, because he will sit in America, he will sit in Europe, and then give guns to our people in Congo to kill ourselves, and then we will do it. He will sit in America, he will sit in Australia, he will sit in Europe, and then give guns to our people in Nigeria to destabilize Nigeria, and then we will do it. He will do the same thing to our people in Somalia and ask us to destabilize Somalia, so that they will take our resources, and then we will do it. If not, because this guy is a criminal, it's a war criminal, who should be languishing in jail. But he has the guts to say that Africans cannot govern ourselves. And for that matter, they should come back and recolonize Africa. Children of Africa, what are we going to do about this? Children of Africa, what are we going to do about this? Are we going to handle the same Africa where people will be speaking nonsense about Africa like this to our children? As I keep saying, we cannot blame our ancestors for the Africa that we inherited from them, or the Africa that they handled to us, because they didn't know better. But today, me and you know better. Me and you know that the only way we can regain back our dignity as children of Africa is by uniting the continent of Africa. Without unity, we will never gain back our dignity. And then people will be speaking nonsense about Africa like he's doing right now. Let us do something about it. That is why we are here. One Africa mission. Together, if we can come together and unite Africa, then we can bring an end to this. But if we refuse, for whatever reason, if we refuse to unite Africa, then this guy, his children and his grandchildren will continue to say the same thing about Africa, because this was the reason why his fathers and his grandfathers and great-grandfathers went to Berlin and divide Africa among themselves, so that forever they can continue to put Africa at the bottom of the human race, so that they can continue to loot Africa and take our resources for free. It is about time we bring an end to this. And the only way we can bring an end to this nonsense is by uniting the continent of Africa. As I said, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for the things that he's saying. Because if you can have African leaders who will go to the United Nations and have a meeting with the Secretary of State of the United States, and be telling them to come and help them, because Burkina Faso is taking Russian mercenaries is taking over Burkina Faso, and it's a security.
Russian mercenaries are on our northern border. Burkina Faso has now entered into an arrangement to go along with Mali in employing the Wagner forces there. I believe a mine in southern Burkina has been allocated to them as a form of payment for their services. Prime Minister of Burkina Faso in the last 10 days has been in Moscow. And to have them operating on our northern border is particularly distressing for us in Ghana. Apart from not accepting the idea of great powers once again making Africa their theater of operation, we have a particular position that you know about over the Ukraine war.
Blah, blah, you see, this God mentality that we always have about the Europeans is what is causing us, and what is allowing them to be saying all this kind of nonsense about Africa. Because they have brainwashed us to think that they are gods, and then we must worship them. Because after all, we don't know who our God is. Our God is a white. We are saying it. Take it or leave it. Your God is a white man as an African. If not, where did you get your name from? Where did you get your European name from? It is because your God is a white man. And in order for you to bring an end to that God mentality by the Europeans towards Africa, is by dropping everything they give to us. Everything that they have ever given to us was a fraud. Everything, their educational system, their political system, their spiritual system, was to keep Africa at the bottom of the human race. That was their main mission. And I said, today we are here as counter missionaries, one African mission. And our mission is about bringing back the dignity of the African race. How do we gain back our dignity? It's by uniting the continent of Africa. Please, as a child of Africa, if you appreciate what we are doing, and if you are not happy about the Africa that you inherited from your ancestors, and if you are not happy to see videos like this where a European, because I've never seen a white person in my life, I've traveled a bit, and I'm telling you, this is what is white. I have never seen a human being looking like this. So these Europeans calling themselves white, first of all, it's a fallacy. It's a big lie. I've never seen somebody looking like this paper. I've never seen one. These are pale people who think that they deserve to rule over everybody, to humiliate everybody. And as I said, people have stood up against them. The Chinese have stood up and said enough is enough. The Japanese said enough is enough. The Russians. Today, we as Africans, it is our time to stand up and say enough is enough. We can no more tolerate all this nonsense coming from these pale-skinned people who call themselves white, who have nothing good for the continent of Africa, and yet we embrace them anytime they come out with any nonsense. So please join our mission. If you appreciate what we are doing, please join our mission, support our mission. How do you support us? It's by not just watching what we are doing. If you appreciate what we are doing, share it, pass your comments, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on Facebook, One African Mission. We are on a mission, and our mission is all about bringing back the dignity of the African race. I thank you very much for coming around. Please, let us do everything we can in our power to bring an end to this nonsense coming from these people. How dare him say they should come back and recolonize or govern Africa for us, because we are not capable of governing ourselves. African leaders, this is an insult to you, and then we urge you to do something about it before it is too late, because they are coming, and they will come if we allow them. I thank you very much for coming around.